Hi everybody, it's a pleasure to be here. My name is Ditte Laursen. I'm Head of Department for Digital Cultural Heritage at the Royal Danish Library. I have a background as a curator and researcher at the Danish Web Archive. Let me also introduce the Web Archive itself, the Danish Web Archive. Here it is, at least one of our copies. At the Web Archive, we collect the web as part of our country's legal deposit legislation, which gives us permission to obtain and archive all public available Danish websites without having to ask the website owners. That is, websites on the top level.dk, websites minded on a Danish audience, about Danish people, or of interest to Denmark. So we aim to cover all of Denmark's web materials. And because of our legal deposit law and this comprehensive collection strategy, and because we started relatively early in 2005, we may be one of the biggest web archives in the world, at least compared to the size of our small country. We are at present at more than 600 terabytes, and the increase is more than 100 terabytes a year. In my talk, I'll address our collection strategies at the archive in relation to this network's working packages. I'll also speak about the different forms of access we provide to the archive, including transnational access. Finally, I'll highlight some of the challenges and possibilities we face at this point relevant to this network. Collection strategies and working packages. For the first working package comparing entire national and transnational European web domains, the Danish Web Archive very well supports this strand of research. We do domain crawls, a snapshot of the entire Danish web domain as a main collection strategy. We do that 2 to 4 times a year based on a list of domain names from the Danish Domain Name Register. This, of course, allows for a variety of different studies. It allows for systematic studies over time, and it also forms like a back clause for all of the types of web entities and activities on the web. To give you a sense of what we have collected, this is a number of Danish domain names over time, and we didn't collect it all. We started to archive the entire Danish domain in 2005, where there were around 600,000 Danish websites. And we continued to do this till this date, now with around 1.3 million websites. Before 2005, we only collected so-called static materials, so no websites, but web publications, for instance, government reports. And as many other national libraries, we missed the very early Danish web, starting in '87 with 49 domains. Nevertheless, we are very proud of the web archive that we have today. The broad crawl strategy we combine with smaller, more frequent crawls. We do daily harvesting of news, and over the course of a year, we typically do 2 or 3 events. And that's why we're able to support the strand of research in events in working package 2, analyzing transnational events. In the application, terrorist attacks are mentioned, and we did in fact collect related material. For the French events, we collaborated with the French National Library, and we also did a rather big event harvest around our own terror attack in Copenhagen. By the way, with wonderful help from the entire web archiving community. Brussels and Nice attacks are covered in our news collection. The refugee crisis, we did an event for 8 months for that, and we have also covered EU elections at the Olympics in our collection of events. And this worker recently asked specifically about COVID-19, and what first caught our attention was this political cartoon in one of our major news sites back in January. And it spawned a debate in Denmark and almost a diplomatic crisis with China, and we made sure to cover this in a one-time special collection. And it wasn't until March before we realized that it was about time to do an event, which we then did. And then actually the day after, the entire country got shut down. We then decided to boost this collection with a broad crawl because at that moment, practically all websites in Denmark had some activities related to the coronavirus. So for access, I'm sure that this network would like to know that we provide transnational access for researchers affiliated with a Danish research institution. So if you are formally part of this research network, which is funded and hosted at Aarhus University, you are likely to be granted access. We also provide access for researchers not affiliated with a Danish research institution, but then it's only on-site access. So what types of access do we provide? We provide URL search. You'll have to know your domain or your URL, and you type it, and then you retrieve what's in the archive. And then you select your target 8, and you'll get access to that site almost as it was at that moment in time. And you can scroll down and you can click around and you can investigate the site. We also provide full text search. So here I selected a sentence to investigate its occurrence in other sites. And sure enough, it occurs in other domains. I select this one, bybaner. And where is my sentence? It's actually over here to the right, metroen giver overskud. So that is a full text search. If you're more into processing and distant reading of larger data sets, we also allow for extracting materials from the web archive. You then get your own copy of the selected material, a corpus, and you can work on it on the library setup with help from the staff. That is a cost-sharing service that we provide. Or you can take it home, as this woman to the right, and work on it at your own institution. You'll have to delete the materials once your project is over, but nevertheless, it's a great service we developed in accordance with the archive's continued effort to widen access and to develop new tools and services. So to give you an example, in 2010, researchers were happy to conduct a close reading of a single site, for instance, folkekirken.dk. But today the demands are more complex, like this one, where a researcher requested all pages in Danish containing mHealth. So for challenges and perspectives, one key challenge is for transnational collaboration, eligibility. Not all researchers can get access to the archive, and it's not a question about being Danish or not being Danish. It's a question of whether or not you're affiliated with a Danish research institution. And researchers collaborate across borders, maybe now more than ever, but not always in formal ways. And you have to be formally connected with a Danish research institution in order to get access. Secondly, there's the infrastructure. The Danish Web Archive is not connected to other archives. There's no interoperability. So if you want to investigate the press coverage of the Royal Danish Queen in the Danish and the UK Web Archive, and then compare it with the press coverage of the Queen of England in the Danish and the UK Web Archive, there's no easy way to do that because there are no integrated services. The final challenge I mentioned today is language. Language, or comprehension, if you will, is a barrier if you don't know the mother tongue of the archive, because very little information has been translated, often typically only at collection level. So when you search in the archive, just imagine how you would investigate the refugee crisis in Europe in the Danish Web Archive. if you don't speak the language. Will it be possible? Yes, to some extent, but it will be difficult. Finally, challenges are also possibilities. I remind you that we started out with no archive, and then after a while we had an archive, but there were no access to the archive. So for 20 years, we have been working at developing user-driven and experience-led services, and we have been working by giving more access and more content, more sources, and of course we'll continue to do so now also with you. Thank you.